Domain 4 covers food service systems and begins with the menu. Note the menu determines everything: the food, the space, the equipment, and the personnel needed. Menus may be categorized by the degree of choice offered to the client. The no-choice or non-selective menu serves those who are unable to or who have no desire to make choices. It permits more accurate forecasting and gives you a greater degree of control. Menus with a choice, like the selective menu, better please your clientele. Note, an example is the static menu, where the same items are offered every day. This is used when your clients change daily, as in a restaurant. Single-use menus are for special events or functions. Cycle menus are repeated over time. Hospitals often run a 1 or 2 week cycle, long-term care 3 or 4. Advantages include simplified purchasing, standardized preparation procedures, and a more constant and evenly distributed workload. The spoken menu is presented orally to the patient. With room service menus, patients call when they are hungry and order from a static menu. This style has been shown to increase food intake and decrease food waste. Before writing the menu, certain factors have to be known. The first is knowing your clientele. Their nutritional needs should be analyzed and menus written according to standard guides. Also consider age and cultural backgrounds. The physical facility directly influences meal planning. Space in the kitchen should provide for an adequate flow of traffic. Note, if the kitchen floor space is too large, efficiency declines as workers waste steps moving around. Plan the menu within the time and ability limitations of your workers. Consider budgetary restrictions, for food is a costly and variable expense and has to be subject to close control. Meal planning may be impacted by governmental regulations. Schools and long-term care facilities have guidelines to follow. Truth in menu legislation requires that menus accurately describe the foods to be served. Fresh food must be fresh, not frozen or canned. The food code states the person in charge of food service must be able to identify food allergens and symptoms. Aesthetic and external factors, like current trends, should be considered as well. The menu should be varied in color, texture, consistency, and flavor. Every facility must have a set of disaster menus, including a plan that only requires minimum staffing to prepare and serve the food. 1 gallon of water per person per day for a minimum of 3 days is recommended. Steps in developing the master menu are listed. Begin with the dinner entree, followed by the luncheon entree. Menu psychology refers to designing and laying out the menu in such a way as to influence the sale of foods served. Position the items you want to sell more of in the first and last positions within a category. They are more likely to be chosen. The center of a 3-fold menu is the prime menu sales area. Menu engineering focuses on both the popularity, the menu mix, and its contribution to profit, the contribution margin. The goal is to encourage customers to buy certain items. In the example, the macaroni and cheese is highly profitable and highly popular. This is a star item and should be promoted. The steak tips are very popular but not very profitable. This is a plow horse item. Very reliable as a choice, but to make it more profitable, you may need to decrease the portion size or increase the price. Beef stew is very profitable but not very popular and is a puzzle item. You wonder how often to leave it on the menu. Perhaps lowering the price may encourage customers to give it a try. Lentil soup is neither profitable nor popular. This would be the dog on the menu. Consider eliminating these items from the menu. The popularity of menu items can be measured in several ways. Satisfaction surveys may use a hedonic scale where foods are rated from like to dislike. Note, facial scales are used with children or when clients speak a different language. Note, the frequency of acceptance method is where clients are asked how often they would be willing to consume an item. You can also measure plate waste or have clients estimate their plate waste. Another way to evaluate client acceptance of the menu is to calculate the average check. Note, divide the revenue or sales for a meal by the number of customers served at that meal. On average, what did they spend? The popularity index is used to analyze and then predict the future sales of an item. Please note the formula. Divide the number of servings of an individual item by the total number of servings of all items in that category that day, showing how popular items are compared to one another. Note, you can also use the popularity index to forecast or predict future sales of an item. If you plan to serve 300 portions of vegetables next Friday, how many servings of carrots will you need? First, determine the popularity index of carrots on Friday. Then multiply that by the number of expected servings of all vegetables, forecasting that you will need 129 servings of carrots. The term benchmarking refers to a process of comparing your satisfaction levels with those of similar operations, which are known as best in class. This helps identify areas needing improvement. Procurement is the function of acquiring material for production. The purchasing department may be organized as a profit center. This is any department that is assigned both expense and revenue responsibilities. The manager must manage expenses while creating profit for the organization. A cost center is a department that is expected to manage expenses but not generate profit. It helps other departments contribute to the creation of profit. The purchasing of food is guided by policies and procedures. The informal or open market method of buying is where you request quotations on specific items from several vendors. The order is placed after considering the price, quality, and delivery terms. Note, with the formal competitive bid buying process, you submit written specifications and quantity needs to vendors who then bid on the items by a specific date. Suppliers compete over price quotations. The bids remain sealed until all bids are opened together. Note, you place your order with the lowest bid because they are all bidding on exactly the same item. Note, the bid is a contract. With the futures contract, goods are purchased at a specific price, but shipped out to you at specified intervals. Prime vending is a formal agreement with a single vendor to supply the majority of products needed. Note, cost savings are achieved through high-volume purchasing. Note the difference between centralized and group purchasing. Centralized purchasing is where personnel in one office does all purchasing for all departments within the organization. Group purchasing is where several organizations, like several hospitals, unite for joint purchasing. Note, the economic advantage is large volume discounts. JIT, just-in-time purchasing, is where you purchase products as needed for production and immediate consumption. Note, they are not recorded in the inventory. The purchase requisition is the first document used in the purchasing process. The purchase order is a written record of the items and quantities needed. Standing orders eliminate the need to call in the order on a regular basis. We often have standing orders for bread and milk, for it is easy to forecast usage of these items. Written specifications must be carefully prepared to ensure the product you receive is the one you need. Note the 3 types. Technical specs indicate quality desired by including an objective test result, like the grades of canned foods or the gauge of a metal. Approved brand specs mention a brand name, like Heinz ketchup. Performance specs indicate quality desired with a functioning characteristic of the product, like the number of dishes a dish machine can wash per minute. Formularies are descriptions of approved products that an organization would like all personnel to use. Note this standardizes usage and may lead to a volume discount. When selecting a vendor, consider your experiences with them and compare the services offered. The best time to evaluate a vendor is after they've delivered several orders. Maintaining a high standard of ethics is important for a buyer who serves note as a legal agent for the organization. They are entrusted with high buying power and cannot afford to compromise their position. The code of ethics they follow includes the need to avoid collusion. Buyers should not accept gifts or favors from vendors. Note a food broker does not warehouse food. They do not assume ownership. The broker makes the deal between the buyer and the seller. The quantities of food needed are based on the number of people to be served, the size portion to be given, and the amount of waste and shrinkage involved in preparation. Note the procedure. Multiply the portion size by the number to be served and convert that to pounds. That gives you edible portion required. Edible portion is after cooking. To determine the amount to purchase raw, divide the edible portion by the percent yield, which is the amount provided by 1 pound of the item. Looking at the example, to end up with 5 pounds edible, you must begin with 10 pounds raw product. For your exam, you do not need to memorize yields. That information would be given to you in the question. However, if the question gives you the waste, shrinkage, or loss during cooking, subtract that amount from 100% to get the yield. When determining how many servings can be obtained from an uncooked item, consider the percent lost during preparation. For example, if the loss during cooking is 30%, and the portion size is 5 ounces, how many servings can be obtained from 9 pounds raw product? First, subtract the percent that will be lost. Convert what remains to ounces and divide by the portion size. Here, we will get 20 servable portions. Always round down when estimating number of portions available, for you cannot serve or count a piece of a portion. When estimating the cost of a recipe, it is helpful to set each ingredient up in a cross-multiplication format. Please review the example. The economic order quantity method is used to order staple or regularly stocked items. This attempts to find the quantity that minimizes purchasing and inventory costs. To decrease costs, orders should be placed as seldom as possible by ordering larger quantities. One method of forecasting usage is the time series method, which is suitable for short-term forecasts. This assumes that purchases follow a trend over time. An example is the moving average, which uniformly weighs past observations. Each number is given the same weight or value in the calculation. Here we have the number of cases of peaches used in the past 3 months. To determine how many cases you will need for the next month, add the 3 figures together and divide by 3. This is a 3-month forecast. This method is called a moving average because as you move through the year, you use numbers from different months. If you were now to forecast for November, you would delete July's number and include October's number in the calculation. Note, exponential smoothing uses software to forecast usage. This method gives more recent values more weight in the calculation, so it does not uniformly weigh past observations. Using the above example, this software would pay more attention to what was used in September than in July. The causal methods of forecasting usage are based on an assumption that a relationship exists between the item being forecast and other factors like the selling price. This method is used for medium and long-term forecasts. An example is regression analysis. The subjective models of forecasting usage are used when relevant data are scarce or when relationships between data do not persist over time. Here, you may rely on the opinions of others. Note the purchase order is the first control in the receiving process. Receiving areas should be close to the delivery docks with easy access to storage. When goods are received, the delivery slip that accompanies the order is the invoice. It is prepared by the vendor and lists the items purchased with the unit price and the total cost of each item. Note, check the invoice against the purchase order first, then check the items against the invoice. Note, the blind check method of receiving involves giving the clerk a blind invoice, listing the items coming in but omitting the details, like how many. The clerk then must weigh, measure, or count the items and record them on a blind order. The blind document is then compared with the original order. This forces the clerk to seriously check the order. Note, this method takes longer and costs more money in labor. The person who purchased the items should not be the one receiving them. Receiving hours should be scheduled, avoiding busy production times. Note if there is any indication that frozen fish has been allowed to thaw, reject it. The amount of storage required depends upon the frequency of deliveries, and note the market form of the food purchased. Is it raw, prepared, or partially prepared? In dry storage, the room should be dark, cool, well ventilated, and clean, with a separate room for cleaning supplies. Note, temperatures in dry storage should be 50 to 70 degrees, with a relative humidity of 50 to 60%. However, fresh fruits and vegetables require the highest humidity, 85 to 90%. All potentially hazardous foods should be kept below 41 degrees. Frozen foods should be kept at 0 to -10 degrees. Have employees sign in and sign out when taking items from the storeroom. The inventory tells you when and how much to order. Note, the perpetual inventory is updated each time an item is placed in or taken out of storage. This gives you a running record of the balance on hand. The physical inventory is an actual count of all goods on hand, usually done at the end of the month. The par stock method sets a par level for each item. When an order is placed, bring the stock up to that par level, regardless of the amount on hand. The fixed order quantity method determines the order point when you must reorder the item. Multiply the average daily use of the item times its lead time, which is the number of days it takes after placing the order for it to be delivered. To that, add the safety stock, which is a small number of the item you want to have on hand extra just in case. Food storage areas can be arranged to utilize the first-in, first-out method. This stock rotation rearranges the items so the older containers are in front and are used first. In the mini-max stock method, stock is allowed to deplete to a safety level before a new order is submitted. Establish a minimum and a maximum number to have on hand of each item. Goods are ordered when the minimum is reached and only in the amount needed to reach the maximum level. The amount of food ordered will be the same each time you place an order. The inventory can be classified using the ABC system based on how much the total value of purchases is for that item each year. It is expected that 10 to 20% of the total number of items in stock make up 60 to 80% of the total annual value of purchases. These are classified as A items, also called vital or high-value items. At the other extreme, about 50 to 60% of the items comprise only 5 to 10% of the total value and are classified as C items, trivial or low value. All others fall into the B class. Note, the tightest possible controls are needed for the A items. These are the most expensive items. There are several ways to determine the value of an inventory. The actual purchase price method is based on the actual purchase price for each item. The weighted average purchase price is more time-consuming and is based on the average price paid for a product over a period of time. In the first-in, first-out method, the last price paid for the product is multiplied times the number of units. Note, this tends to price the inventory high. In the last-in, first-out method, use the oldest price paid for an item, often underestimating the value of the current inventory. Large institutions may use a central ingredient room, which is a quality control procedure. All ingredients for menus that day are weighed and measured. Only those items are brought into the kitchen. This helps control quantity, quality, and food costs, and helps your staff follow standardized recipes. Inventory technology uses barcodes to identify the type of product, the manufacturer, and the product code. Foods are dispersion systems, which are mixtures of solids, liquids, and gases. They are classified according to the state of matter in each phase of the dispersion. Note, mayonnaise is a liquid dispersed within a liquid, forming an emulsion. Dispersions are also classified on the basis of the size of the dispersed particles. You can change the degree of dispersion by heating or beating the product. The interface is the line that forms between two immiscible liquids. An example of the importance of acidity in foods is found in vegetables. Most are only slightly acidic, making it necessary to can them at temperatures higher than 212. A pressure cooker, which reaches much higher temperatures, must be used to safely can low-acid vegetables. Beets are sometimes pickled with vinegar. This addition of acid lowers the pH, and now they can be canned in boiling water. When green vegetables are canned or overcooked, they may lose their attractive green color. As cells are disrupted during heating, hydrogen ions are released. When these ions come into contact with the magnesium in the chlorophyll, The magnesium is pulled out. Note the molecule is now pheophytin and absorbs light differently, giving off an olive green or brown color. To prevent this, cook the vegetables for a short time. Leaving the lid off allows some of the volatile acids to escape. If baking soda is added to the green vegetables, they will turn a bright green as chlorophyllin is created. But alkalinity softens cellulose, so they are mushy. And water-soluble vitamins are lost in an alkaline solution. To produce top-quality vegetables, heat and serve quickly. Another example of the importance of acidity is in angel food cake. The cream of tartar in the recipe produces the acidic pH. This maintains the white color of the cake by preventing the Maillard browning reaction, so an acid prevents browning. The acid also contributes to the large volume and tender crumb. An angel food cake is white in color, rather large, with a tender crumb, and is the result of an acidic reaction. Note, if you eliminate the cream of tartar, the cake will be small, yellow in color, with a tough crumb. Enzymes act as catalysts to facilitate chemical reactions. They must be carefully controlled to maintain food quality. Note, enzymes are proteins, so are affected by the pH and temperature of the product. Enzymes play a role in the ripening of fruit. Starch is changed to sugar, and the tissues soften. The browning of cut surfaces of fresh fruit is a result of enzymatic oxidation. An acid like lemon juice will lower the pH and inhibit this activity. Vegetables are blanched before freezing in order to destroy enzyme action that may cause flavor or texture changes during storage. Blanching is immersion of the item in boiling water, then cold water. The Maillard reaction produces non-enzymatic browning. The initial step is a combination of a reducing sugar and an amino acid. This reaction is affected by the pH of the foods involved. Note, an increase in pH, which is an increase in alkalinity, causes browning to occur more rapidly. Heat in cooking is transferred by conduction, convection, induction, or radiation. Conducted heat moves from one particle to another by contact. An example of conducted heat is meat being kept warm on a dish sitting on a heated pellet. The heat moves from the pellet to the dish to the meat because surfaces are in contact with each other. Convection heating occurs by physically moving heated air throughout the oven by a fan built into its back wall. Induction heating is the use of electrical magnetic vibrations to energize the molecules of metal cooking surfaces. There is no open flame, and the burner surface does not get hot. Molecules in the pan are activated, which produce the heat to cook the food. Radiated heat comes from the infrared waves of a glowing heat source, like an electrical element or a gas flame. Microwave radiation only affects water molecules and penetrates only 2 inches into the food product. Heat is transferred to the center of large masses of food by conduction. Note, standing time refers to the subsequent distribution of heat by conduction when the magnetron is turned off. Note, a disadvantage with microwave cooking is that it produces uneven heating. That is why a baby's bottle should not be warmed in the microwave. Engineered foods are composed of a variety of ingredients modified to simulate a particular food and have a long shelf life. Meat analogs are made of soy protein and have less fat than meat. Seafood analogs are composed of soy blended with fish. Examples of vegetable blends used to feed people in underdeveloped countries include Incaparina and CSM. The microorganisms that are most important in foods are molds, yeasts, and bacteria. Molds grow best in warm, damp, dark places on acid, neutral, or sweet foods. They don't usually produce harmful substances. Yeasts need water, an energy source like sugar, and grow best in an acid and oxygen. They are also destroyed by boiling. Bacteria require abundant moisture and grow best on neutral foods. Note the danger zone. Foods can be kept for an extended time only if these microorganisms are kept under control. Perishable foods should be kept in the refrigerator. Freezing preserves the nutritive value as well as physical characteristics. Note, thaw food in the refrigerator. If this is not an option, the next best method is under running cold water. If you thaw an item in the microwave, it must be cooked immediately. Dried foods keep well because the water content is so low that microorganisms can't grow. Canning is done under high pressure for a short time to preserve quality. Bacteria grow best at a pH near neutral. Foods high in acid will support less bacterial growth. If the pH of the food is low, its acid content is high, so it can be canned in boiling water. This includes fruits and pickles. But if the pH of the food is high, its acid content is low. Those foods must be processed in a pressure cooker, which reaches much higher temperatures. This is mainly vegetables. Irradiation is another means of preserving food. To prevent off flavors from developing in meat, irradiate the meat frozen. Pascalization is high-pressure processing, extending shelf life. It exposes foods to gamma rays or radiant energy. Note BHA and BHT serve as antioxidants in fatty products. Sugar and salt are good preservatives. They make the water in the food unavailable for bacterial growth. Food production control includes the production schedule and standardized recipes. A recipe is standardized if it has been tested and adapted for use. Each operation has its own quality food standards, including customer reactions and employee evaluations. Proper forecasting of amounts needed and controlling portion sizes are two essentials of good quantity control. To determine the number of ounces in a scoop, divide the scoop number into 32. The scoop number tells you how many servings or scoops you will get from 1 quart. So a number 12 scoop will give 12 scoops from 32 ounces. As the scoop number increases, the serving size decreases. If a recipe calls for a serving portion using a number 12 scoop, but instead you use number 16, the portion size will be smaller, so the yield from the recipe will be greater. Note for a garnish, use the number 60 scoop. A garnish is a decoration, so a very small amount is required. Two devices used to control large projects with multiple parts are the Gantt progress chart and PERT. Gantt is concerned with the time of production. It is a bar chart that shows the relationship of activities over time. The program review and evaluation technique, or the critical path method, shows relationships among various phases of a large project. It shows which activities must await completion of others and which ones can be done concurrently. Note, the critical path is the longest pathway through the project and determines the minimum amount of time you will need to get the job done, so helps determine labor costs involved. The conventional production system is the one most hospitals have used. All preparation is completed and food made ready in a kitchen on site where the food is to be served. It is more adaptable to individual preferences and distribution costs are minimal. The disadvantages are associated with the stress caused by meal period demands. Work distribution is uneven, and productivity is often lower than desired. Foods may be delivered to patient areas by several methods. Centralized service means that trays are set up in a central area under common supervision as on a tray line. Trays can be transported in heated refrigerated carts, with heated pellets, or on insulated trays. A concern with insulated trays is delivery time. How quickly can you get the tray to the patient? Decentralized delivery is used where distance from the kitchen to the patient is great. Bulk food is delivered to patient wings and trays set up close to the customer. This requires more equipment, employees, and supervisors. The automated cart transport system, also known as monorail, is built into the wall out of the way of general traffic. It can carry trays to patient areas in a few seconds. This is a costly system. Note, the decision to use this system must be made during the design phase of kitchen planning. The second system is the commissary satellite method. This curtails labor and other costs by, note, centralizing procurement and production. The kitchen and service areas are in separate facilities. Menu items prepared in the commissary are held in bulk or portioned before storage. Carriers are filled at the commissary and delivered to the service units. An advantage is that all units receive the same quality items. Note the economic advantage is centralized large volume purchasing. Disadvantages relate primarily to the safe delivery of the food. It has 9 critical control points. In the ready prepared or cook chill system, foods are prepared, then frozen or chilled for later use. This requires a blast freezer and adequate storage space. The distinct feature is the separation between the time of preparation and the time of service. Foods are prepared well in advance. When using the blast chiller, foods may be held for a few days. If tumble chilled, up to 45 days. And if frozen, foods may be held for several months. Note, chilled bulk foods should be brought down to 37 degrees in 90 minutes or less. Foods prepared in the cook-chill system can be reheated by several methods. Note, use the convection oven when heating foods in bulk. An advantage of this system is that the production schedule can be more liberal. It also evens out the workload from day to day. Only certain items are prepared on a given day. Production can be scheduled on a 40-hour week, an 8-hour day system, so employee turnover is decreased. A disadvantage is the cost of the blast freezer and the storage space required. In the assembly serve system, you purchase completely prepared items from the food processing industry. There is no on-site food production. Only the finishing touches, such as thawing and heating, are required on site. This is also known as total convenience. It requires fewer employees, less equipment, and only has fewer critical control points. Display cooking is a restaurant design where food is displayed and prepared in full view of the diner. The simplest provisions for food service are those made in a self-serve unit like the cafeteria. The traditional cafeteria is where the employee stands behind a counter to serve the guests. They can serve from 3 to 4 guests per minute. Note a design that feeds a large number of people is the scramble, free flow, or hollow square system. Separate counters for different items are placed around the room. Customers can go directly to the food they wish without waiting in line. You can serve as many as 25 customers per minute once they've learned the routine. For this system to work, you need repeat business. This would work well in a school or employee's cafeteria. The third type is the food bank or electronic cafeteria. Customers select a pre-cooked frozen meal which is color-coded. The microwave oven that is used to heat the food has color-coded timer buttons. Note to determine seat turnover in the cafeteria. Divide customers per meal by the number of seats available. Vending machines are used to supplement the other types and are very useful when your kitchen is closed. At a buffet, your concern is protecting the food from the patron. Counter service provides ease and speed of service. Note a U-shaped counter utilizes space to a maximum. Personnel who stand inside the U have few steps to take to serve many people. The American style of table service is where food is prepared and portioned onto individual plates in the kitchen. In the French style, which is more expensive, a waiter does some food preparation at the table. He might make a sauce or slice the meat. In the Russian style, food is prepared in the kitchen and portions are brought to the table and served by waiters from a platter. In the family style, guests serve themselves from platters and bowls. In the banquet style, a preset menu is prepared for a given number of people. Under the FDA Food Code, please note the reheat temperatures and how to handle leftovers. There are several governmental agencies charged with protecting our food supply. Note the USDA's Food Safety and Inspection Service inspects meat, poultry, and eggs. The National Marine Fisheries Service, within the Department of Commerce, inspects fish. The Public Health Service is concerned primarily with infectious and contagious diseases, especially those transmitted through shellfish. The CDC investigates foodborne illness. The FDA enforces the Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act, which covers all food sold in interstate commerce except meat, fish, poultry, and eggs. There is some overlap. The FDA inspects shellfish. The Food, Drug, Cosmetic Act prohibits the adulteration and the misbranding of foods, and it regulates additives. Note, substances listed as GRAS means they are accepted as safe due to long-term use, but have not been experimentally tested. The Food, Drug, Cosmetic Act provides 3 mandatory standards for products shipped across state lines. Note the differences among these federal regulations. The standard of identity identifies what a product must be to be called by a certain name. Mayonnaise has a standard of identity. The standard of quality states minimum quality levels. And the standard of fill protects the consumer against deceptive packaging. Note the FDA controls any food labeled imitation or substitute. The EPA inspects water and pesticides. Foodborne intoxications are caused by toxins formed in the food prior to consumption. As you review this section, please note the onset times, symptoms, and sources of each illness. Also, please note the following additional items. Staphylococcus aureus may be contracted from a cut finger. Looking at the symptoms, you see fever is not among them. Clostridium botulinum is a rare and more deadly condition than staph. Even small doses can cause serious illness. It affects the central nervous system. Note it is found in soil, so foods that grow on or near the earth may carry this organism. Honey is a source and should not be given to infants. Clostridium perfringens is also anaerobic. This is known as the cafeteria bug, isolated from meat and gravy mixtures that have been sitting covered in the steam table at improper temperatures for long periods of time. Bacillus cereus symptoms may come on soon after eating. Fried rice is a common source. Foodborne infections are caused by the activity of large numbers of bacteria carried by the food into the GI tract. Illness from salmonella infection often includes a fever. Raw and undercooked animal protein foods are common sources. Listeria grows easily in the refrigerator. Note the growth zone. It has a high fatality rate in those immunocompromised. Note this may harm the fetus. Campylobacter jejuni is found in animal flesh. Note raw and undercooked poultry and meat are common sources. Shigella is found in feces and transmitted by flies. Common sources include raw produce and moist foods like potato salad that has been prepared with bare hands. E. coli is found in humans and animals. It can survive freezing, high acidity, and grows in the refrigerator. The norovirus is caused by poor personal hygiene among infected food handlers. It is found in human waste and transmitted through contaminated water and human contact. Note the most critical elements in preventing the spread of foodborne illness are good hand washing and controlling time and temperatures. Foodborne illness can be linked directly to the lack of attention to personal hygiene. Employees should not wear jewelry, as bacteria can lodge in settings and contaminate food. Hands should be washed for at least 20 seconds. HACCP identifies food hazards and high-hazard jobs. Critical control points are the points in food service where a loss of control would result in an unacceptable safety risk. The points are numbers, timing, and temperature numbers. Out of the 4 basic food production systems, the commissary system has the most critical control points. The assembly serve system only has 4. The FDA's Food Safety Modernization Act focuses on preventing food safety problems. Note there are 3 classes of food recalls. In Class 1, there is a reasonable probability that eating the food will cause a health problem. In Class 2, there is a remote probability of adverse health consequences. In Class 3, eating the food will not cause an adverse health consequence. The Public Health Security and Bioterrorism Preparedness and Response Act focuses on protecting the safety and security of the food supply. Employee safety includes the use of personal protective equipment. The Hazard Communication Standard mandates that MSDS sheets be available on all hazardous materials. OSHA's Blood-Borne Pathogen Standard requires notice to employees of all potentially infectious materials. Safety programs may be centered around the 3 E's of safety. The engineering aspect refers to the built-in safety features of the equipment and the building. Education for safety begins with establishing firm policies and continues with on-the-job training. Enforcement of the policies with regular inspections is essential. Every facility must have an integrated pest management system using a licensed pest-controlled operator. Note governmental safety standards include OSHA. This law states that employers must provide a safe place to work. You must meet minimum safety standards and keep records of all accidents and illnesses that occur on the job. When OSHA inspects a facility, they are looking for safety hazards. There are 3 types of fires. Note the symbols used for A, B, and C are a triangle, square, and circle. Note it is the Class B fire that is most often found in food service. We use the multi-purpose dry chemical extinguisher. Fire extinguishers should be placed near equipment that is most likely to be a fire hazard, like near the range or fryer. Preventive maintenance begins with establishing cleaning schedules and standard procedures. Then, maintain the facility and the equipment in a good state of repair. Cleanability of the kitchen is aided with floor drains and cantilevered equipment mounted on the wall. Note the chemicals used to sanitize surfaces that touch food are chlorine, iodine, and quaternary ammonia. Immerse the surface in the chemical for 1 minute using lukewarm water, which is at least 75 degrees. Note the planning process begins with a prospectus, which is a planning guide. Then organize the planning team, conduct a feasibility study, and plan the menu. Ergonomics is the practice of using human engineering to create an environmental design. Note, activities are studied to see that they are done safely and efficiently, giving comfortable chairs, quiet workspaces. There are several factors to consider in your kitchen design. The space required for food production is determined by the market form of the foods purchased. The equipment is based on the menu. Walls should be washable and impervious to moisture. In food preparation areas, from the floor to 5 feet 8 inches, the wall should be of glazed tile. The rest of the wall can be of another material. Ceiling height is 14 to 18 feet. Floors must be resilient, durable, and non-slippery. Note, the best kitchen floor is made from quarry tiles. maintain a temperature of 68 degrees. Light intensity is measured in foot candles. A greater light intensity is needed in localized work areas. Note the flow chart shows how the work flows through the kitchen. Templates are models of equipment cut to scale, helping you visualize the plan and check for floor space needed. When planning aisle space in the kitchen, if one person is working in that lane, it should be about 40 inches wide. If more than one person is working in the lane, or if mobile equipment will be passing through the lane, note about 50 inches wide, and the main traffic lane should be 60 inches wide. When laying out the work area, note the straight line layout is considered the best from a time and motion point of view. All equipment must meet standards and bear the approval stamp of an organization like the NSFI. Note, this assures you that the equipment complies with food safety and sanitation standards. This inspection is voluntary. Note the underwriter's lab inspects the safety of electrical equipment. Note the best material for food service equipment is stainless steel. It is durable and wears very well. The gauge of the metal measures its weight. Note, the lower the gauge, the stronger the metal. The degree of finish, called its luster, is indicated by numbers from 1 to 7. Note, the higher numbers indicate a higher degree of polish. When arranging equipment, avoid cross-traffic and make it accessible for cleaning. Modular equipment requires less floor space. Note, the 3 stages of dishwashing in a 3-compartment sink, including the temperatures. This is the setup for a pot and pan room. Pots and pans must be allowed to air dry. Note the 4 stages of mechanical dishwashing, including the temperatures. The pre-rinse temperature must be below 140 degrees to prevent protein from coagulating and sticking to the dish. The wash temperature, 140 to 160. Lower temperatures lead to greasy dishes. The rinse cycle has a booster heater to raise the temperature of the regular hot water up to 170 to 180 degrees. This will sanitize. Drying agents are added to the rinse cycle to prevent water spotting. There are several types of dish machines. Note the low-energy chemical machine saves energy because they do not have booster heaters in the rinse cycle. Note the water used is regular tap water at around 140 degrees. Hard water contains a high proportion of minerals or salts, requiring more detergent. Deck ovens are units stacked to save space. They are useful when production is high and space is limited. The pizza oven is a high-temperature application of the deck oven. Convection ovens have a fan in the back wall that forces the hot air around. Note you can cook more in this oven because you can use multiple racks. Cooking will be even and can be done at a lower temperature for a shorter time. This is the most energy-efficient oven. Rotary ovens are used for large volume baking. Note the tilting skillet is very versatile. It serves as an oven, fryer, brazier, kettle, steamer, and food warmer. Steam cooking is more energy efficient than the other types. Steam pressure is measured in pounds per square inch. Note the temperature rises as pressure is added to the steam. High-pressure steamers operate at 15 psi. Their speed facilitates, note, batch cooking of items like vegetables. This means you can cook small batches quickly. The steam-jacketed kettle has 2 sections of stainless steel with an airspace between. The circulation of steam heats the inner shell, so the food in the kettle never touches the steam. This is very energy efficient. Infrared tubes help keep food warm. The mixing arm of the upright mixer moves in a circle while rotating the beater. This is called planetary action. An important feature of the deep fat fryer is its recovery time, how long it takes to return to proper temperature after a batch of food has been cooked. Sustainability of food systems meets the needs of the present without compromising the ability to meet the needs of the future. A sustainable diet is composed of foods that keep us healthy and which also encourage sustainable food production. There are several actions we can take in dietetics to support this effort. Note, choose Energy Star and Water Sense appliances. Food waste management includes reduce, reuse, and recycle. Emergency planning includes the following items. During a power outage, refrigerators should keep food safely cold for about 4 hours. A full freezer for 48 hours if the door is closed. Keep a 7-day inventory of shelf-stable items for the number of meals anticipated. Keep an inventory of other food products for 96 hours in a hospital or 72 hours for residential care. And be prepared for your facility to function on its own should resources from outside not be available. Conserve food supplies immediately. Cut back to 2 meals per day for non-patients, reduce hours of cafeteria service, and curtail complimentary beverages. Note, in a flood, foods in retort pouches would be safe. This concludes Domain 4.